just a beautiful Monday here in Las Vegas. The Golden Knights are coming off a really solid weekend on the road, so it has us in the mood to talk some hockey here on Nighttime at Noon. I'm Ashali Vise with Justin Russo. Justin, weather's heating up. Flowers are blooming. You know that means the best time of year is coming up. Pretty crazy to think that 2 weeks from now we'll be in the midst of round one of the playoffs already.
It's so fun to think about. And for the Golden Knights, as compared to last season, it's nice to have that nice X next to your name as well as you go down the stretch here, knowing that you're going to be a part of it. Of course, last season it was a little closer to the end that they clinched that spot, but after a couple of good games this weekend, they're feeling good about their game and they're ready to go.
Yep, now the question is just going to be who will they play? So, of course, as the show goes on, we'll dive into the standings. We'll dive into what we've seen lately. We'll look at what's ahead. We're also going to hit a lot of the topics around the league. Of course, Alex Ovechkin becoming the NHL's new leading goal scorer all time. We have an incredible behind-the-scenes show to discuss with you as well. And we also want to hear all of your questions. So please drop them in the chat box. Anything and everything you want to know.
Send them in.
We obviously don't know everything, but we're going to do our very best to at least give you our opinion for whatever that's worth. But Justin, I guess let's start here with the Golden Knights. So 5 regular season games left. They're looking to claim the top spot in the Pacific Division. Currently in that spot by 5 points. LA does have a game in hand, which they will use tonight. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But, you know, I guess since we've spoken to these fans on Nighttime at Noon last, it was a 2-game homestand the Golden Knights were not pleased with, followed by the first 2 games of this road trip, which they should be very pleased with.
Yeah, you know, you look back to the game against the Oilers last Tuesday and a period that got away from them in the second period, and that happens against good teams, right? Especially this time of year. The Oilers are playing for a lot, and they recognize that, okay, bad second period, let's get back to it on Thursday against Winnipeg, and that just never happened. It was a rather flat performance from the Golden Knights. Bruce Cassidy used the word concerning after the game, but they knew they had the weekend to get their game in order, and they did so in a big way. And it was close against Calgary. It came down to that last minute, and that save by Akira Schmid to save things, send it to overtime, and let Riley Smith get those overtime heroics. But really nice job building off of that game on Saturday and then moving into Sunday yesterday and picking up that win over Vancouver.
Yeah, a game in Calgary that was, like you said, maybe too close for comfort in some ways, but also a game that the Golden Knights felt that they deserved to win. So good to see them get that result. And really good, you mentioned Akira Schmid's name. Really good for him to get that opportunity, his first start with the Golden Knights. And I would imagine, that win doesn't happen without that save with 2 seconds left. Yeah,
I mean, the last couple of seconds. And credit to the Golden Knights, too, and to Schmid for the way in that third period they bounced back, because it was a late goal in the second period into an early goal in the third period. And you could feel things unraveling a bit, but they just got back to their game. They got back together. And credit to Dustin Wolf. He was terrific in that game. The Golden Knights probably should have had 4 or 5 goals, but Dustin Wolf was on his game, and they got it to overtime. They got the lucky bounce. Had another lucky bounce yesterday, but they'll take them this time of year, and a couple of 3-2 wins.
And Vancouver last night, what'd you see in that one?
Another one in which the Golden Knights, it was a resilient effort, right? Because Vancouver came out early. They had that goal right away. The Golden Knights come back. Really nice play by Ivan Barbashev, showing off some of the skill on the backhand, and then that lucky bounce that I mentioned. Almost going to Keegan Colasar on the back door to get that one, but it goes off the skate of a Canucks defender, rather. And even after the goal was challenged from, I believe it was Aturatu in the second period, the Golden Knights felt that one should have came off the board for goaltender interference. Again, they just got back to their game in the third. They really shut down Vancouver in that third period. There wasn't a lot that the Canucks had going. And then you like to play by the line that's been going probably the best over the last week or so in that Riley Smith, Victor Olofsson, and William Karlsson line. Olofsson goes right to the front of the net, and he gets that goal to win it.
Yeah, there's been a lot to like out of that line, especially over these last 2 games. I mean, we saw it on the previous road trip as well. That's when you saw them really start to get the chemistry going. But what Bruce Cassidy has been challenging them to do is, look, I know that you guys are always going to be good on the rush. You just look at the 3 of you, you know that's going to happen. He wants them to continue building their ozone game and creating chances that way. That's something that they certainly have been doing for sure. But as we're on the topic of last night's game in Vancouver, let's take a listen to what Bruce Cassidy had to say after the 3-2 win.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that matters. It's more about us getting our game in order and playing the right way. And, we thought Thursday, or I thought, and I think the group agreed that we need to be better. So we got on the road in Calgary, and I thought played a pretty solid game. I had some ups and downs there and found a way to win. And tonight I thought we were good for maybe the first couple shifts they jumped on us. That happens. They earned their goal, got to the front of the net, worked hard. Both of them, they got to the interior ice, and other than that, I thought we did a real good job controlling the rush game. Penalty kill was good, so I liked our effort.
Victor Olofsson, he worked pretty hard along the wall tonight, and then he had 9 shots against Calgary, 5 again in that game. Good to see him get rewarded.
Yeah, Vic's is such a nice kid. Not a kid, but he defers a lot, so we have to get in his ear. Vic, you're the shooter on that line. They can all score and have in this league, but he's the guy that, he has to have that shooting mentality. Riley does a bit of both, so does Carly. So let's have someone who we know we're going to get the puck to the net. So he started to do a little more of that. I like the way he scored. He got to the inside, didn't wait on the outside. He's got a great one-timer. Wasn't looking for a tic-tac-toe. Went right to the top of the crease and scored from there. So Smitty did that in Nashville, a greasy goal. So that line's starting to score some goals around the front of the net. They'll be dangerous because they're fast and good on the rush all the time. So mix in some ozone goals, and like I said, I like the way it looks.
Surprised the second goal stood. Obviously a challenge, contact.
We always defer to our video coach. He's been excellent over the years. So whatever he thought I was going to do, to me it was okay. He's in the crease by himself, and our goalie's trying to make a save, I think, with one glove, and he can't. So that's why there's a rebound in the first place. That's the way the people are looking at it, probably not thinking about a hockey play, how the goalie's. But that's why we thought he went in there on his own, didn't allow our goaltender to play the position. I don't think there's a rebound if he doesn't go in there. And then he gets bumped, so he can't get up. But by the time he gets to the puck, it looks like he's cleared. So I don't know. We never get a true answer on that. Eventually we will. We felt it was goalie interference, or wouldn't have challenged for sure. Didn't go our way, and we got a huge save. And good for Hilly. I'm sure he appreciates the fact that we went to bat for him, the goalie interference, so he makes the big save. So that's everybody looking after one another. And then from there, I thought we got back to our game, and it didn't have an influence on the game. But yeah, we thought it was interference and go our way.
That would be what it's about this time of year. Like, he wasn't super busy, but big saves and big.
No, listen, it's like last night. I thought Wolf played very well for them. We had a young guy in Schmidt. He made a breakaway save on Backlund with 6 seconds left. If he doesn't make that save, we don't get points. So it's not always about save after save after save. It's when they come. It's, to me, like special teams. You need timely goals in this league. In the power play, timely kills. You need timely saves. So we're not a team that's given up chance after chance every night anyway, but we're human. We're going to make some mistakes. We're going to need to get bailed out, and Hilly certainly bailed us out in that power play opportunity they had from the slot.
So that was Bruce Cassidy after last night's win in Vancouver. I want to circle back to something he said early in that press conference. He said that he's been reminding Victor Olofsson that you are the shooter of that line. Well, I think that message has hit home, considering Victor Olofsson had 9 shots in Calgary. It was 10 at some point. At some point, they took that away, because I promise, going into the third period, it had already been 10, something like that. And then he had another 5 last night. Yeah. So that's 14 shots over a 2-game period. Had to feel so good for him for that one to go, and I think that's well-deserving of a game-winning goal.
And regardless, a career high on Saturday. So he still hit that mark, and he was on the radio after the game against Calgary and said, well, I had all those shots on goal. I wish I could have found the back of the net with one of them, and he did on Sunday against Vancouver. But, a really strong performance from him, and it starts to make you look at that internal competition that Bruce always talks about, because now as we get closer to the playoffs, we expect at some point Tomas Hertl will be back into the fold. That's a full forward group. And you think, who comes out of the lineup, right? And it's probably between Victor Olofsson and Tanner Pearson at this point, but with the way that Victor Olofsson's playing on that line, you got to keep him in the lineup at this point.
Yeah, that line's been looking really good, and we talk about that game in Calgary. I think he had 4 shots on the first power play, and that unit was only out there for, that unit's only out there for 30, 45 seconds, so it was just insane, firing away. But he caught up with Gary Lawless after last night's game, after a well-deserved GWG.
9 shots last night, and you kind of said to Dan and I on the radio that you would like one of them to go in. Tonight, huge goal for the Golden Knights.
Yeah, it was nice to get it. Finally, I think I had about 15 chances these last couple of games, and it was a perfect play by Carly, skating in up the ice and found me right in front of the net. So, it was nice.
You worked real hard on the boards in this game. It was
the VGK Way subsumed.
There, no worries, but we're back. But as you said, obviously it felt good for that goal to go in for him. Okay, so Good on Victor Olofsson. We have some questions starting to roll in, so I'm just going
Let's go to 'em.
Please keep sending them, by the way, but we're just going to get to these as the show goes on. First of all, I guess since this is one of the first things we said on the show, Justin, what is your favorite thing about the weather heating up outside?
I think it is just kind of that feeling of what's to come for the spring, right?
Playoff time.
It's so synonymous in this city now with the spring coming and playoff time that things start to feel a little bit more important, right? You sense the importance of the games going up. Things are a little bit tighter, and it's related to a hockey sense. It just feels so great at that time of year. Now, I will say it does indicate that we're getting toward the 120 and 115 degrees, so I'm not the biggest fan of that.
Just enjoy this for now. It's perfect dog walking weather.
We'll keep it in the
perfect
70s.
to go sit on a patio, have a drink,
Yeah.
go on a hike, whatever
Never
it might
bad.
be. Are there any Hurdle updates? I know he's skating, but will they wait until playoffs to bring him back? So Tomas Hurdle did travel with the team. So that is a big step in the right direction. Now, the team had a travel day today, so there won't be an opportunity on this road trip for him to get a full practice in. He had still been in a red non-contact jersey. I don't think that we'll hear from Bruce Cassidy today, but with those things in mind, I wouldn't expect to see him on this road trip. Who knows? Just throwing that out there. That's just where it stands. A really good sign that he traveled, though. I would think that as soon as he is ready, they will get him in. I would think he would want to get some games under his belt. It's just a matter of if he'll be able to. Yeah,
he's going to want that little bit of a runway heading into the postseason. Alex Pietrangelo touched on it a bit yesterday as well, talking about the fact how it's so hard to just show up in the postseason game one and get to your game, because he did it, Mark Stone did it, and Tomas Hurdle all did it last year, and they know how tough that was against the Dallas Stars to kind of get right into their game and try to win that series. And just having that little bit of runway can help you toward the postseason. We'll see if it's 1 game, 3 games, we don't know. But having any little bit of time for Tomas Hurdle is going to help. And luckily, he hasn't been out for an extended period, so it's not a thing where he's been out a few months now, and kind of like last season where he was really trying to work his way back into game shape. This is a guy who was playing at the top of his game before he got hurt, and hopefully with a game or two under his belt, he can pick up right where he left off.
Another reminder, too, you see what the VGK are doing without him. You saw what they did without Shea Theodore, who has been on a heater of a season offensively all year. And you saw the way they were able to stay afloat when they unfortunately had to miss Alex Pietrangelo for a few games. Just a reminder of the depth of this team is really impressive when you can pull out one of your leading goal scorers and still have results.
And that's what has allowed the Golden Knights to get to this point in the season, right? It's the depth that we talked about early when they were even healthy, with Brett Howden and Keegan Colasar playing bigger roles and Pavel Dorofeev scoring more goals. But now, when people are hurt, it's even, we saw Cole Schwint at times come in and play good minutes. All the guys that came up from Henderson that have played good minutes, and most recently Kira Schmidt, who had them in a game, and he won that in Calgary. So it just goes to show that you never know this time of year who's going to be the hero, who's going to help you out, but the Golden Knights are getting contributions from everybody, and it's working out in a pretty good way.
Another question we have fits more into the Around the League category, which we're going to get to right after this break. But first, hey Vegas fans, if you want more Golden Knights content, head over to the Vegas Golden Knights YouTube channel now and subscribe. You can watch all access player videos, game highlights, and even our special VGK Origins. Subscribe to our channel today to stay up to date on all things VGK and revisit some of our greatest moments as the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll be right back here on Nighttime at Noon. the Vegas Nighthawks are back this season and better than ever. Come join the Nighthawks this Friday for their home opener as they host the San Diego Strike Force. Head over to nighthawksfootball.com to get your tickets today, and we will see you at Lee's Family Forum this Friday at 7 p.m. Nothing like mixing a little football in with the best time of year as we're talking about that. Let's take a quick pause on the Golden Knights talk to talk about some stuff going on around the league. Of course, I can't believe that we've waited till this late in the show. This is my bad to talk about Alex Ovechkin scoring goal number 895 and is now the all-time leading goal scorer in the National Hockey League.
It's mind-blowing to think about. I saw a clip come out recently of an interview in 2016 with Elliot Friedman and Alex Ovechkin where Elliot asks Ovi, says, "You think you're going to get there?" He says, "It's impossible. No way I get there." And here we are, 895 already on the board for Ovi. And I don't know what's more incredible when you think about it, the of course, number being broken.
The iconic Sully, too.
Yeah, or the fact that he's over 40 goals at this age in his career. He is still going along like he's in his prime, and this season has just been such a revelation for him, too.
How about the fact that he broke his leg this year?
Oh, yeah. By the way, he missed a month and a half, yeah.
And only missed a month and a half after breaking his leg. Dave and Shane did some leg work. They were mentioning on the broadcast the other night, they were just kind of talking about, is there anyone who could break that?
Yeah.
And the closest that they could come up with was Austin Matthews, who at this point has scored about 40 goals less than Alex Ovechkin had scored at this point. Do you think anyone will ever break 895?
I don't want to go on record saying no
Ever
because
is a long time.
It's been a nice symmetry of 31-year gaps between this record falling. So if there's a 10-year-old out there right now in 31 years that wants to break it when they're a 20-year veteran in the NHL, then sure, I'll give them the credit for that one.
Incredible of Wayne Gretzky to be there every step of the way throughout this journey too, and be so supportive, of course, understanding how great it is for the game. But one of the craziest stats in all of sports, in my opinion, which doesn't mean much, is that you could take away all 894 of Wayne Gretzky's goals, though, and he would still be have more points than anyone all time.
Mind-boggling.
So I feel like, for the great one is still the great one. The great 8 is the best goal scorer of all time. But what Wayne Gretzky has done, when you look at the number of points throughout his career, no one's even close, and no one's that one. I think I'm willing to say that one's untouchable.
Not a big debate there, I don't think. I mean, you look at a guy like Yager who played into his mid-40s, and he's still about 800 points short.
Yeah.
He benefited from some of the era-adjusted scoring that Wayne played in as well.
Right.
So he had a bit of that time in that era too. And I really do love the last couple of goals by Ovi, the tying goal and the goal to go ahead, both from that circle, both from that spot. Just where you'd expect it, from where all those goals have been scored from over the years. Nothing more perfect. And it's funny for Ilya Sorokin, who ends up giving up that goal. That's the first time Ovi has scored on Ilya Sorokin, so picked a pretty bad time for Ilya to miss that one. But I know
Sorokin gifted him his stick after the game.
Yeah,
so
just a ton of respect.
No hard feelings there, of course. Yeah, just incredible stuff. Huge congratulations to Alex Ovechkin, to the Washington Capitals. Great for that organization as well. Question, are the Washington Capitals going to win the President's Trophy, or the Winnipeg Jets, or I don't know, somehow neither? What are you thinking?
I think the Capitals right now, the Jets have been evened out a little bit here, and they're lucky that the Stars didn't do as well over the weekend, because Dallas could really be on their heels in the Central right now. But the Capitals did not win that game. They lost 4-1. That was the only goal they scored. But I do think they can pull away and get that President's Trophy. Now, you do have Winnipeg, who is still needing to push, so they're going to push to the end to get those points, whereas Washington, they have a bit of a gap in the Metropolitan. I think they can get it. Maybe the Ovi boost gets them there, but do you want it at this point? Who knows?
And the challenge for the Jets tonight is that they face a St. Louis Blues team who is on a 12-game win streak. So that's the longest in their franchise history. It's also the longest win streak of the season. Winnipeg, ironically, had an 11-game win streak earlier this season. St. Louis Blues, did you see this coming out of the Four Nations break?
No, not at all. And it's feeling like 2019, I imagine, in St. Louis right now with the way this team is rolling into the postseason. Haven't officially clinched yet, but I think all indications are that they will sooner rather than later. And even look at the last game against the Colorado Avalanche and rolled away with that game early on and just were able to put away the Avalanche late. It's just impressive that at every turn they've gotten late goals to tie things and send it to overtime. They've dominated teams along the way. It'll be really interesting tonight in Winnipeg. That's a tough environment to play in. But for the Blues, we'll see if they can get there.
So incredible stuff that's going on in St. Louis. That brings us to this question. Actually, I should say St. Louis in Winnipeg tonight. Shane Knighty will be on the call for the Amazon call in Canada. I think we can still watch that, though. hopefully. So anyways, shout out to Shane.
If you can, tune in
He's
to
covering
Shane.
a good game tonight that we'll all be watching. Oh, and I was going to say St. Louis. I believe if they win and Calgary loses in regulation that they clinch.
Yeah, they have a
officially,
scenario tonight up for grabs,
yes,
I believe.
Yes, I believe. Okay, that brings us to this question from VGK Frank. Who do you think looks the best heading into playoffs?
It's hard to argue with the St. Louis Blues right now. 12-game win streak. Now, the only thing is how long can you sustain that, right?
Right.
And have they used the magic up a little early? And it's hard to tell at this point. I suspect the game against Winnipeg will be a good indication. Vegas, of course, the last couple of wins, that's been good for their mojo and good for how they've felt heading into the postseason. We'll see if they can carry that in. You look at the Dallas Stars. They, again, struggled over the weekend, but they've been really good to push up to the Winnipeg Jets in the Central. They want that first spot, and we'll see if they can get it. But I think, Dallas looking good. Vegas and L.A. both in that chase right now, but it's hard to go anywhere else but St. Louis.
Yeah. So you mentioned the chase with L.A. So Vegas 5 points ahead of L.A.
Yep.
LA has a game in hand. They use it tonight, but then, of course, Vegas plays Colorado tomorrow, and LA doesn't, so they'll get a game in hand back. Anyway, so we're going to be playing a little bit of a back-and-forth game. There's a look at the standings. Right there, LA plays Seattle tonight. 4 of LA's remaining 6 games are at home, and they are a very good home team, so that's something that Vegas will, want to keep in mind as these games become increasingly important. But really good to see Vegas get some of that separation back when that lead had been down to just 1 point a few days ago.
Yeah, and it was getting very close, and especially when you went into the third period against Calgary, realizing what that gap was and that game might not go the Golden Knights' way, it was a little nerve-wracking, but as you look at the standings there for our streaming audience, 6 games left for the LA Kings, so maximum amount of points that they can get is 109, which means the Golden Knights, if they win 4 games out of their last 5, would officially clinch, but you hope that LA takes a loss here or there and at some point, but right now the Golden Knights still in a good spot, feeling good about their game. Tough Avalanche team tomorrow, but have that 5-point cushion back. Yeah,
Colorado's been interesting to watch since everything that they've done since the trade deadline.
Yeah,
what a season it's been for them. From Mikko Rantanen no longer being a member of the Avalanche. I don't know if that was on anyone's bingo card. Not to mention Mikko Rantanen being a member of the Dallas Stars.
You might see him.
Anyways, should be a good one tomorrow night in Colorado. And Alex Pietrangelo had a good point, or I think it was early last week. Like, as much as it's nice to look at a schedule and maybe feel when you're in the midst of a race like you have an easier schedule than others, on the same token, there's a big benefit to playing good teams this time of year, just in terms of getting in that playoff mode.
Getting in that playoff mode, and two, just knowing what to expect, right? Because we've heard this from a couple of guys, too, that when you face a team like the Golden Knights have, and like Chicago, right, you don't necessarily know who's going to be in the lineup, because there might be trying out some young guys. They might play a little more reckless. They're not within their system. They're trying to get a job for next season. So even though they're not a playoff team, they're down in the standings, it's a little bit of unexpected. So when you play these tough teams, you know what to expect. And you're both kind of, it's iron sharpens iron, right, to get into the postseason. And I think the Golden Knights are relishing that opportunity to play some good teams down the stretch.
I have a question coming in specifically for you. We're taking a hockey break, and it says, who does Justin think will win the F1 Drivers' Championship?
Wow.
From some guy named Gordon.
Wow, Gordon knows me pretty well. F1 Drivers' Champion. Now this is right up my alley here. I'm going to go with Lando Norris. That is who I think is going to win for the F1 fans out there. Now Max Verstappen did just win the last race. I think he's the best driver, but Lando Norris has the best car under him in the McLaren right now. So I'm going to go Lando Norris, as we're way far out from that down the line.
How is Gordon going to feel about that pick?
I don't know. Maybe Gordon should chime back in on our chat and let us know how he feels about that pick.
It is also Masters Week.
Yes.
Which Bruce Cassidy is also very excited about. I talked to him recently, like, are you ready for the best time of the year? And he was like, yes, it's Masters Week. It's almost playoff time. That's the best time of year. You have any Masters picks?
I'm not as avid of a golf watcher as some people. I know a lot of people are feeling good about what Rory McIlroy's doing right now, but he has let some people down in the past. So I'll get on the Rory train for now. We'll see if he can win it.
Full Swing is a great all-access show on Netflix that gives you a peek behind the scenes of many of those players on the PGA Tour. The Golden Knights are kind of getting their own little version, not little version, I shouldn't say that, their own version of that. It's called the VGK Way. It premieres tonight.
Yeah.
actually, if you're on Nighttime Plus, it premieres at 4 o'clock. So I don't know if you consider that evening, afternoon, night, whatever you want to call it. And then it'll be on Vegas 34 at 9 p.m. So we are very excited to give you a little sneak peek of that a little bit later in the show. We're also going to be joined by our Chief Marketing Officer, Eric Tosi, who is going to give us all the details of the show. You are going to absolutely love it. We have a few minutes before we get to that point, though. So let's go for more questions.
Yeah.
What storyline has been your favorite this season?
What storyline has been my favorite this season? Around the league, I kind of like the Mikko Rantanen just jumping everywhere kind of storyline. I think it's been so fun to follow, and it went from, okay, we don't know if he's going to get that extension in Colorado to, oh, now all of a sudden he's traded in Carolina. Are they going to go on a cup run? No, they have to dump him at the deadline, and now he's with the Dallas Stars, and they might run head-to-head into the Colorado Avalanche in the first round of the postseason. So I think that's been one that's been fun to follow because it was just such a bombshell story when it came out, and the trade was so big the first time around, and then the second trade came around as well. I think that's been one that's been fun for me.
Do you hope Colorado and Dallas play round one?
The fan in me does. Yes, that would be really fun to see.
At
I think
least
the
cross
storyline,
paths
yeah.
eventually, please, for all of us hockey fans.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And I think the way the playoffs are setting up this year, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a first-round matchup that you don't like at this point. There are so many good teams in it, and there's so many fun storylines. Even out east, whether we get the battle for Florida with the Panthers and the Lightning, the Battle of Ontario I know people are excited about with the Maple Leafs and the Senators potentially. So lots of fun to come.
Justin, do you have a pregame ritual? Joey from Twitch wants to know that.
Do I have a pregame ritual? I don't really have a pregame ritual. You know, when I, at the very least, do my Silver Knights broadcasts and I'm on the pregame show, you know, I just kind of make sure I get all my notes in order, get into a good headspace, and get up there for warm-ups and take it in. Nothing too superstitious, though.
Developed a weird one. This is not a superstition. This is just a thing, I guess. Outside of our TV truck,
yeah,
there are a bunch of snacks, like good snacks. And these are for the hardworking production crew that tries to make us look as good as possible, which is not an easy job. So these snacks are to fuel them. However, there are fruit snacks. There's a big box of fruit snacks.
Tough to avoid.
And so every time I go to the truck to look at all the, graphics and everything we're using for the night, I grab three little bags of fruit snacks.
Okay.
Eat them all in one sitting. So that is my current
Hey, whatever
pregame
works for
ritual.
you.
Whatever works. I mean, I don't, I think the players' pregame rituals are probably a lot more effective than downing some fruit snacks before, but that's why they're professional athletes, and I just yap. Any predictions on Houston versus Florida for the NCAA championship? George from Facebook.
Fun
asked.
one. That was a good couple of Final Four games. I enjoyed those. I have Florida in my bracket, so I'm going to go with Florida. I like what Walter Clayton's doing down there, and I think they're going to win. And it would be better for my bracket if they win, but I think it's going to be a fun game. Houston with the comeback against Duke that nobody saw. That was fun to watch, and I'll go Florida.
Sensitive subject for me because my Arkansas Razorbacks were, ahead of Texas Tech the entire game to go advance and play Florida next in the Elite Eight. However, they gave up a lead at the end and lost in overtime, and I stayed up way past my bedtime to watch that happen. So I'm going to watch for sure, but I don't have any predictions. I'm just a little sad about that. So anyways, Justin, we will get back on the hockey train here, and we will be joined by Eric Tosi to talk about the VGK Way. You are going to love the content that is coming your way, but for now, we're going to head to break. welcome back to Nighttime at Noon, where we are about to tell you all about the VGK Way, a show that you are absolutely going to fall in love with. Let's get a little sneak peek right now.
The VGK Way subsumes a lot of things.
The most important thing for us was character.
There's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things and nothing in between.
They're hardworking,
It's low ego,
no nonsense,
work ethic.
give back to the community.
We've focused on doing whatever you're doing, do it the right way.
They're all about team.
And you can talk about leadership, but you better know it when you see it.
You never give up, you never give in, you always advance, and you never retreat. This is the VGK Way.
Let's get back to work, playing the right way, possess the puck, we'll be fine.
Well, goosebumps already, and that's only a 30-second sneak peek.
Yeah.
So Eric Tosi joins us now. What exactly is the VGK Way?
Yeah, so it really goes back to a year one concept when we were looking at what we wanted to name the show. And we'd been talking about doing this type of project for a while now. And the league has come in around the playoff time, and they've done a similar project that's behind the scenes where you're embedded in with the team and in the locker room, but it's never focused on one specific team, right? You're usually getting some different viewpoints of the other teams that we may be playing or other teams in the playoffs. So we've been toying around with this idea of doing a behind-the-scenes show that chronicles 100% exclusively our Golden Knights players, what's happening not just with the players, but our coaches, our staff, and that additional storytelling that we know fans love. So when we were talking about what the name was, that the VGK Way goes back to this year one concept of really how this organization was built and what it was founded on. So when you hear Bill and George talk about that, that really sets the scene for what this show is all about.
I think it's great too when you look at this building, right, and you see all the mantras on the walls, all the sayings. It really represents what the culture is around this team. And you've mentioned that, okay, you wanted to do this for a little while now. Take us behind the scenes about how all of the moving pieces came together to put this together.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big project. It's a heavy lift, and you need to make sure you have the support and comfort with the team. And so we talked with George and Kelly and Bill just to make sure that they were comfortable with moving forward with a project like this, and the coaches and the players too. And we've been fortunate to make deep playoff runs where the players are used to having cameras around and in the dressing room, and it doesn't impact their play. And it's even better for us now that we're utilizing our own people and players who, staff who travel with the team and have the familiarity with the players and coaches. So. And then you have to go through just the execution of it and everything from working with our trainers to sew the mics on the players and get the players to be comfortable wearing the mics in those games. And then the thing that I'm probably most proud of is that we've utilized our own internal resources for this, and we have such a talented entertainment and production team here, and for them to be the ones that are behind the camera and us coordinating with all of the players, the coaches, even their families in some segments here too that you'll see. It was something we're really proud of, and we hope the fans really enjoy it as well.
Why was it so important to pull the curtain back for these fans?
Well, that's what we know. The fans love that. Even just some of the surveying that we've done, it's that we want to see more of the player personalities, and that's what you really see in this episode. Is that you're getting a completely new look at a lot of guys who may be a little bit new, or you see on Nightlife and the other programming that we have. But this is bringing you inside the locker room. It's bringing you on the ice with players. As and there's some intense moments, but there's some lighthearted moments that happen right during the middle of the game action, which I found personally, and we think our fans will find really compelling and interesting. And so different personalities, and oftentimes in a game broadcast, you're not getting that same look. You're just seeing the goals and then what's happening in intermission and postgame. But this is bringing you inside the locker room and around the team for really the first time.
And I imagine it's no coincidence. As we get to playoff time right now, I'm sure the appetite increases for this type of content. The fans are getting more involved with the team, getting ready for the postseason. How exciting is it to kind of transition into the postseason with this now debuting?
Yeah, exactly. That was our hope, is that it was going to lead up and just continue that momentum and all the excitement that's taking place right now within the realm and with our fans. And so this is a nice little appetizer to the main course that's coming up here next week.
You mentioned all of the work that goes in behind the scenes. How much does it take? I mean, you had to have cameras around constantly to make sure you didn't miss anything. So what's that process like?
Yeah, we started filming when Riley Smith arrived. Actually, that was going to be we targeted right around trade deadline, and we weren't sure what was going to happen, if there were going to be any moves, if there weren't. But of course, that lined up nicely with an original Misfit coming back into the fold. So we started there, which I believe was March 6th or 7th, is when he arrived, and then that first game at home against Pittsburgh, and then went on the road trip with the team. So we had a team of 4 plus others that are normally traveling with the team that are in the locker room. We're filming on a player for the entire game, so you're only going to see in some instances just some short clips or just a couple minutes of footage, but we're rolling that whole entire time. And so be able to coordinate all of that, and then to go through all of that footage, that's the other piece too. So we have another set of producers that will go through and kind of take notes and highlight a lot of the more compelling moments that take place. But utilizing the Columbus game, for example, so we have Keegan, who's mic'd up here in Columbus, but then we also have a segment that's running parallel with that with Shea Theodore, who's watching the game with his wife, infant son, and dogs back home. So you're getting what it's like for a guy who's close to returning to the lineup, who's obviously missing out on and wants to be in with the team and contributing, but he's rehabbing an injury back here in Vegas, and we had a crew that was there with him at the same time the game was going on out in Columbus. So some really cool, unique, and different viewpoints that fans and viewers are going to see when they check this out when it debuts later today.
I think so cool to get that perspective both on and off the ice, and it shows the willingness of the players, right, to take part in it and open their lives up a little bit for you guys. And, you know, I wonder, you mentioned some of the other stuff that the NHL has done in terms of the behind-the-scenes shows. What have you tried to draw from those and kind of do different on our side of things with the VGK?
Yeah, I think definitely differently is more the 100% focus on the Golden Knights. I think in terms of drawing, we know that it's not just, as you said, Justin, it's not just on ice, it's off the ice too. Mm-hmm. So you'll see some great family moments. Tomas Hertl is he's probably one of the stars of this episode, we would say, not just for the on-ice moments that we were able to capture, but the Golden Knights players have a family skate regularly when they're in town, and so you get a lot of their little ones will be out there on the ice with them and the NHL players, and so to see him interact with his boys on the ice and just it shows a different side of the players that you don't always get to see. So we do think the fans are really going to enjoy it.
Do you have, without giving away too much, do you have a favorite scene in this pilot episode?
I do.
Can you give us like a little hint of maybe who it involves or what the vibe is? I don't know.
It's a Pittsburgh game for me. I think Tomas was really, and as a relatively new player to our organization and has had an amazing career, but I think being able to see and hear how he's talking on the bench, how he's interacting with referees, even other players, is a great exchange with Sidney Crosby that he has there, and then subsequently seeing him with his family afterwards in a different segment. For me, Tomas is the star of this episode, and I think that for me was my favorite part.
Something's interesting about miking up players in games is a lot of fans out there, if you're watching on the digital channels and not listening on the radio, you're able to see some of this footage now. It's just incredible with Tomas skating with his boys. But you think it's easy. Oh, just put a mic on the player and it's magically there. But there's a lot of work that goes into that. The mics have to be sewn into the jerseys and kind of protected by the pads. It's a lot. It's heavy lifting.
Yeah. So speaking of which, Ashley, good segue, because the trainers are featured throughout, because we had a back-to-back when you're traveling from Buffalo to Detroit. And I don't think a lot of fans or viewers realize what goes into that. And the trainers are packing up after a rough loss in Buffalo, the way that game ended, packing up, loading all the gear, getting on the plane. As soon as they land, they're heading right to the rink in Detroit, unpacking, dressing up the room. So we had a crew that was there documenting there with Scott Boggs and JW. So you get a little bit of insight into what goes into that too.
I think that's so interesting because when you talk about the VGK way and the culture, it's not just the players on the ice, right? It's the whole organization, all of the traveling group with everyone that goes with the team. It's got to be so exciting to share their stories too, and just kind of the all-encompassing way that the VGK operate.
Exactly. Even on practice days. I think another interesting segment that came out of this too was Joel Ward, and seeing how he runs an off-day practice as an optional. He's not somebody that we've heard from a lot but he's had an amazing career, and he's done exceptional work with the Silver Knights and has now been instrumental to the success of the Golden Knights now on the bench. So to see in the locker room, the video sessions where the coaches are putting together, and then Joel goes out with the guys, and you see it was a lot of fun. I think that was one of the themes that carry throughout this, is that this team is a lot of fun. There's some extremely fun personalities that are on there, and it should be. It's hockey, and it's NHL hockey at a really exciting time, and so I think that definitely shines through, as you'll see in the segments. And Joel was another one that we thought was a really compelling segment.
Just going to be incredible access. So the VGK Way today, 4 o'clock Pacific on Nighttime Plus. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe. It will also be on Vegas 34 at 9 o'clock tonight. So Eric Tosi, first of all, thank you so much for helping bring all of this access to life, along with the entire video production and entertainment team. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
And as we head to break, we are first going to take one last sneak peek from the VGK Way.
Way to keep it in the fight. Sorry for all of you in the last two. Anyway, great job. Way to get back on track, and let's be ready for next game.
A lot of those this season. We'll be right back. Have you ever wanted to own a piece of Golden Knights history? VGK Authentics is the official channel for game-used items coming off the ice. From game-used pucks to game-worn jerseys and everything in between, owning something from your favorite Golden Knights player has never been so easy. Shop VGK Authentics on VegasTeamStore.com, at the Arsenal at City National Arena, and at the VGK Authentics kiosk behind Section 10 at T-Mobile Arena during the games. And as we welcome you back to Nighttime at noon, right before break, you heard a little locker room post-game speech We're 48 minutes into the show, and I still can't talk. That's great.
Monday.
From Pavel Dorofeev. So I just have to say, Pavel Dorofeev, 33 goals on the season, and the man is not slowing down.
It is unbelievable, and it's one of those things where it's been exciting for Golden Knights fans to watch over the past couple seasons, that kind of steady growth for Pavel Dorofeev from a guy that was a call-up from Henderson that had a little bit to play at the end of that 2022-23 season to the role he played last year that increased a little bit to now he's the guy offensively, and he is the guy that, as you heard yesterday on the radio, he's kind of a marked man now. He's got that goal-scoring kind of reputation about him, and he's not going to sneak up on teams anymore, and he certainly will not sneak up on anyone in this first round of the playoffs, whoever the Golden Knights end up facing. And while it was a nice weapon to have early on, he is one of those guys that has taken the mantle to be the top scorers on this team, and even more exciting if you get Tomas Hertl back into the fold. You have two of those 30-plus goal scorers, and, oh, by the way, Jack Eichel's pretty good, too.
Yeah, not to mention the chemistry that Hertl and Dorofeev have developed together as well. I guess he's exceeded expectations, Pavel Dorofeev. I guess the only thing is you didn't know what he was going to be able to do with that consistent opportunity, so maybe it's not even fair to call it that.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about exceeding expectations, though, the voting for the 7th player of the year is open. And that's someone who has exceeded the expectations on the ice for the Vegas Golden Knights. The 3 nominees, we'll go one by one.
Yeah, let's do it.
Brett Howden, number 1.
I think that's my personal pick. I don't want to sway the polling out here, but Brett Howden's been so incredible to watch, from a guy that was right at the cusp of double-digit goals the past couple of years to explode for 22 now. Keegan Kolesar getting on the Gretzky train, getting him trying to get to 30 goals. It's been so exciting to watch for both of those guys, as we'll get into here in a second.
Yeah, Gretzky is an ultimate nickname. I think it very much embarrasses Brett Howden. It also embarrasses Brett Howden that Keegan Kolesar is telling everyone he's going to hit the 30-goal mark. But what I really like, Brett Howden is, more of a soft-spoken, very humble person.
Yeah.
But he said when he hit the 20-goal mark, are you surprised? Are you amazed? I think it was Gary that asked him in Minnesota right after the period in which he scored, and he said, in some ways I am, just because I've not even been close to that before, but another part of me knew that I had it in me if given the opportunity with the right team, and that's exactly where he is right now. So really good for Brett, believing in himself. It's paying off. The team's believing in him. And you mentioned Keegan Kolesar because he likes to give Brett a hard time sometimes, but he is another nominee for the 7th player award.
And for both of those guys, earning contracts during the season too, and have just played right up to the potential of those contracts, and they certainly earned them. You look at Kolesar, was hoping he would get that goal yesterday on the back door. It didn't go his way. Of course, it's been a while for him to score, but he just does so much on the ice for the Golden Knights. He's so much a part of that identity line, that 4th line that we always hear about from Bruce Cassidy, the way he plays the 200-foot game, and he's sprinkled in that goal scoring a little bit too. Yeah,
best offensive season of his career. He's also stepped up in a leadership way. He becomes more and more vocal each season. It seems like maybe we'll see that on the VGK Way tonight. Who knows?
Perhaps.
Maybe. I believe that Eric Tosi told us he's going to be mic'd up in one of the games. Maybe. Hopefully I'm not...
Columbus, I believe he said,
that. Yes, exactly. And the last nominee is Brayden McNabb. And it's almost hard to talk about if he's exceeded expectations because he's so steady. However, I'm 99% sure on this. Yes, plus 36 on the season, though. I mean, when you have plus minus is kind of a rating or a kind of a stat that people say, does it matter? Does it not? Is it really telling? But it gets to a point where if you are that dramatically in the positive range and you're matched up against some of the best players on a nightly basis, that tells you something about Brayden McNabb.
The plus minus is impressive. The consistent blocking of shots is impressive. The willingness to do that for Brayden McNabb. And you mentioned the steadiness for him. Maybe it's not a season in which he exploded offensively, kind of like he did last year, but perhaps the standout performance from Brayden is that he's just put together another consistent season. He just keeps doing it over and over and over again, and you just know every time you get on the ice when Brayden McNabb's out there, you know what you're going to get, and he allows so much to open up for Shea Theodore on that pairing as well, taking some of the dirty work, allowing Shea to get out on the breakout. He's so important to this team.
You touched on it as well when we talked about Howden and Kolesar, but Brayden McNabb also signed an extension this year. So that's a good sign for the Golden Knights when the 3 people you're talking about who exceeded expectations all signed contract extensions. So, and it's kind of like probably a chicken or the egg thing. Like, did the contract extension help them, give them confidence and help them feel a little bit more free? but also they had to play a certain way to earn that contract extension.
And I think it's exciting too, because heading into this season, we looked at all the goals that were missing from last year. Jonathan Marchessault, so chief among the players that were leaving that had 40-plus goals. You were looking, okay, where are we going to find all this scoring production?
Yeah.
And it was Brett Howden. It was Keegan Colasar. Victor Olofsson also in the mix early to get some of those goals. And, of course, yesterday as well. Everyone has just stepped up in such a big way, and it's such a deep team right now.
So you can vote on those 7th player awards by going to VegasGoldenKnights.com, select your vote, and they will be awarded later this week at the final home game.
I believe so, yeah.
And that brings us to this week, which is Fan Appreciation Week. There's stuff going on from watch parties tonight for the away game to initiatives all week long. It's a really fun week here in Golden Knights world.
Yeah, there was already a couple watch parties over the weekend. Tomorrow the watch party at Cosmopolitan for the Golden Knights and the Colorado Avalanche. And just so much fun stuff to give back to all the fans that have been so good throughout the season. And, I saw the report that came out that the highest attendance this season, of course, it's the Vegas Golden Knights, always over capacity, always filling out T-Mobile Arena. The fans are great here, and the Golden Knights give it back to them by playing great hockey.
Yep, really good at home all season long. They're hoping to get their home game back on track later on this week, starting with Thursday's game against the Seattle Kraken when they return home from Colorado. They also have the jersey off their backs after the last home game, which is always a really incredible tradition. But, of course, the best part of it is that we celebrate this week, but you know that there's so much more hockey to come.
That's the best gift.
That's
the best gift for fans, is playoffs incoming for the Golden Knights.
Yep, exactly. Okay, we have a couple more questions that have come in. Someone is asking if how Dave, Shane, and Gary are on the road, and if there are any funny stories. And I don't have a particular story coming to mind, but just being on the road with them is the funny story in itself. Because there's no off switch. They just, what you see on the air is what you get with Dave and Shane. They have a great time.
Yeah.
And then something says, hopefully we have a short summer, but what are your favorite things to do if we ever do have a break, Justin?
Yeah, if we ever do have a break, well, like you said, hopefully it is a short summer.
Very short as possible.
Unfortunately, the playoff lines up with the good weather, so hard to be outside in a capacity that isn't in a swimming pool in the summer if we do have a break, but just enjoying some of the sun, getting out there. As our friend Gordon touched on, I love my Formula One, so getting some Formula One races in at a good time is pretty fun too.
So a quick rundown, what are you expecting? What do you want to see tomorrow against the Colorado Avalanche?
I think just a continuation of what we saw from the past couple of games, kind of getting their game in order, building the game toward the postseason that we hear so much from the Golden Knights. The puck management wasn't there against Winnipeg in the last game on Thursday at home. It's been better over the weekend, and it has to be better tomorrow because it's a very dangerous Colorado Avalanche team. Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar at the head of that. You don't take care of the puck, it's going to be in your net pretty quickly.
It sure will be. Hopefully the Golden Knights will continue defending the way they have been throughout this road trip. They look to sweep the road trip tomorrow night. In the meantime, this was Nighttime at Noon. Happy Fan Appreciation Week to all the Golden Knights fans. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here.